How His Friends Destroyed Him by Gerald, Cumberland. To Harry Bruton it seemed an eternity before the little steamer, Corcaise, was berthed, the gangways placed in position, and the passengers allowed to disembark on the quay at Le Pirret. For nearly half an hour he had been standing on the quayside shouting inanities to his friend Dick Castles who, clad in flannels, a straw hat, and a lemon-colored tie, stood grinning on the deck and failing to catch a word that was called to him. "Had a good time," shouted Bruton. Castles, examining his watch and craning his neck forward, yelled back, "Just 8:40, oh, damn. Can't you hear, what do you say? Damn, that's all." This sort of thing could not go on indefinitely, and Bruton, shrugging his shoulders, began to laugh. Nevertheless, he was terribly anxious for Castles to come on shore. Every minute mattered. God alone knew what might be happening at this very second in that big house on the outskirts of Athens, that house whose garden even now, in April, was one huge, thick cluster of flowers, crimson, blue and yellow. Bruton had been in Greece a couple of years. Leaving Oxford at the age of 23, he had gone to Athens to study and write. Castles was coming to him for a few days on his way to Constantinople. Friends of many years' standing, both had for some weeks been looking forward eagerly to this meeting, and now, though they were within a stone's throw of each other, they could not clasp hands. At last the gangways were pushed from the boat to the quay, and Castles was one of the first to step on shore. "Let's hurry through the customs as quickly as possible," said Bruton. "I've got a car waiting on the road." 5 minutes later they were in the car rushing at top speed in the direction of Athens, 4 miles away. "And now that those rotten Levantine Jews have ceased pouring my baggage and me," said Castles, "how are you?" "Top hole. And you?" "Never fitter in my life." "Good Lord, it's fine to see you again, Harry. Had a ripping time on board." There was a French girl who sang. Bruton interrupted him by placing a sudden hand on his friend's arm. "An awfully rotten thing's happened, Dick. I must tell you all about it before we arrive. I've got a friend here in Athens, a man called Gascoigne. Yesterday his girl jilted him and ran off God knows where with another fellow. She played up to him, to Gascoigne, I mean, to the very last moment, spent the evening with him the day before she skedaddled. Well, Gascoigne's done, absolutely broken. All yesterday and last night I was with him, literally keeping him from suicide. I am going to him now, I daren't leave him alone, good Lord," exclaimed Castles. "Rather a weak sort of devil, isn't he? And why the dickens should you bother about him, anyway? This is going to knock the bottom out of our holiday, I'm afraid it is. But, you see, he's all alone and I'm his closest friend. His mother's dead, his father's away, and there he is with just one man-servant, a Greek, living alone in an enormous, rambling house. I scarcely like to leave him even while I came to meet you." Castles cursed under his breath and lit a cigarette. "I'm beastly sorry," said Bruton, "but what can I do? If anything should happen to him I should blame myself forever." "Oh, you're doing quite the right thing, old son," Castles assured him, "but what a damned ass the man is. It makes me sick the way young fools carry on about women. But he's not a fool. As self-contained and manly a chap as you could wish to meet. Now, listen. What I propose to do is this. We'll go and seek him now, have breakfast together, and persuade him to come back with us to my place. I can easily put him up. Wherever we go we'll take him with us. He wants pulling out of himself, and in a day or two he'll probably be all right. But just at present he's dangerous to himself, I mean, though I may tell you I've got his revolver all right. But here we are." The car slowed down and stopped in front of a big white house with green shutters, standing well back from the road. A great wooden gate barred their way. In response to their ring, an oldish man came hurrying from the house. "Everything all right?" asked Bruton. "Yes, sir. Mr. Cyril's digging in the garden," and at the back of the house they found Gascoigne, a fair handsome fellow with blue eyes and freckles. He wore no coat, and his open white shirt revealed a magnificent chest. Shaking hands with Dick Castles, he invited them indoors. "Coffee and things are waiting for you," he said. "Good," exclaimed Castles, "for I'm dreadfully hungry. On the boat we've been breakfasting at 10:30. Such a rummy breakfast. Wine and rolls and hors d'oeuvre and cheese." They stepped into the house and entered a large cool room with whitewashed walls. The pine wood floor was bare except for an occasional Persian rug whose smooth colors held and gratified the eye. "Do help yourselves," said Gascoigne. "No, don't. Sit in these easy chairs and I'll wait on you." His fresh face was a little haggard and his eyes glittered. He busied himself with cups, plates, and food, and when his friends had begun eating, he eagerly and tremblingly seized a decanter of whiskey, filled a champagne glass to the brim, and drank it off neat in 2 gulps. "Oh, I say," exclaimed Castles, "I didn't know you had any whiskey there." "Do give me some, certainly. I'll get you some soda." When Gascoigne had left the room, Bruton turned to his friend. "What on earth are you drinking whiskey for at this time of the morning?" "Well, the great thing is not to let your friend think he is doing anything unusual. He knows we are watching him carefully, and a watched man always poses. He is suffering, and perhaps he is a little unhinged, all the more reason why we should not only make no comment on what he does, but should behave ourselves as nearly as possible in the same way that he does." "I wonder," said Bruton. Gascoigne entered with 3 or 4 bottles of soda water. "Oh, really, you shouldn't have troubled," protested Castles, "for I'd much rather have it neat. I'm sick of red wine, and they hadn't even a drop of whiskey on board," and he helped himself to a glassful. "How shall we spend the morning, Cyril?" asked Bruton. "Shall we drive to the Acropolis and sleep for an hour in the shade of the Parthenon?" Gascoigne looked at him curiously for a moment, and then laughed. "What a funny old thing you are," he said. "No been to Athens before?" he asked Castles. "No, this is my first visit." "Very well, then. We'll go to the Acropolis tonight, there's a full moon, and one's first sight of the Acropolis should always be by moonlight. This morning we'll take the car to Eleusis. There are mysteries there," he added darkly, "undiscoverable mysteries. The Temple of Demeter is now a confusion of broken stones. We can bathe there. The sea is blue." He drank more whiskey and still more, and while his friends ate their breakfast he had continual recourse to the decanter. But he exhibited none of the more obvious signs of intoxication, his voice and gait were steady, only his eyes were wild, and his face strained. After pacing the room for a short while, he sat down in a deck chair facing his friends. "Finished?" he asked. "Do have some more. Those oranges were plucked only this morning." "No? Well, then, come upstairs with me, I've got something rather magnificent I want to show you." He rose and led the way from the room. The house was full of greenish light reflected from the half-open shutters. The staircase leading to the upper story was made of white marble flushed gently with pink. Gascoigne, opening a door, said, "This is my bedroom." They entered and he pointed to a plaster cast of a woman's head nailed upon the wall opposite the window. Walking to the window, they half-seated themselves upon the dressing table there and looked at the cast. Instinctively, Castles knew it was Gascoigne's love. "It is very beautiful," said he softly. The face had the inscrutable smile of La Gioconda, there was mystery in the mouth, imagination in the eyes, and holiness dwelt on her brows. "Who did it?" asked Bruton. "Some artist chap," answered Gascoigne. "As a matter of fact," he continued, carelessly, "the man she's run away with. He's very clever, don't you think?" He walked up to it, as though scrutinizing it for the first time, then, returning, he put his face close to the face of Bruton and said, "Damned little devil, isn't she?" But it was Castles who answered him. "She has the most wonderful face I have ever seen," he said, "the kindest face. But, then, nearly all faces are masks. That, I suppose, is what they're for, to deceive." "I mean, outside," said Gascoigne, "I have the most gorgeous view." They turned and looked. The windows were wide open. Beneath them was a thick, undulating carpet of pear blossom as thick as a heavy fall of snow, and as brilliant as snow in the sun. The orchard was several acres in extent. In the distance were blue mountains, the sky above them had a faint tinge of purple. "Good Lord! How wonderful!" exclaimed Castles. "And is this Greece or paradise?" "It was both, till yesterday," said Gascoigne. "Now it's hell. By the way, Castles, are you a good shot with a revolver?" "Pretty fair. At least, I used to be, but I've had no practice for years. I wonder if you can shoot as well as this," and on the instant he turned round and, at arm's length, held out a Webley, pointing it straight at the cast on the opposite wall. In rapid succession he fired 6 rounds, smashing the cast into 100 pieces. His friends, standing one on either side of him, looked on without a word or movement. "Rather good shooting," said Castles, at length, as though it were the most ordinary thing in the world to pour lead into bedroom walls after breakfast. Bruton, pale and trembling, exclaimed, "But I thought I'd taken your revolver." "Have you taken my other revolver?" asked Gascoigne, his face working with anger. "What the devil for? Where is it? Give it me now. Get it, I tell you. Who in God's name are you to come here stealing the things I may want at any minute?" Bruton put his hand on Gascoigne's arm. "Don't be angry with me, Cyril," he said, penitently. "I was a fool to do it, I know. But I was so upset last night, I scarcely knew what I was doing. But why did you take it?" But again it was Castles who answered him. "He told me on the way here why he had taken it. He was afraid you would find the other man and kill him." Gascoigne's face cleared a little. "In any case, it was a damned silly thing to do," he said. "I know it was," said Bruton, "but you've forgiven me, haven't you? It's up at my place, I'll get it you this afternoon or some time tomorrow. Look here, Cyril, why not come and stay with me? I've plenty of room. It'll be a change for you." "Thanks. But I don't want a change. As a matter of fact, I'm damn tired. I think I'll go to sleep." He was still holding his revolver, but now he put it down on the dressing table with a gesture of disgust. "I'll not go with you to Eleusis," he added. "Use my car, won't you? You'll find it round at the hotel garage, and Eurynikos will drive you if you want him. I'll call for you tonight after dinner, and we'll all go together to the Acropolis, right?" said Castles. "But are you sure you'll be able to sleep?" asked Bruton, involuntarily glancing at the revolver. "Of course I shall be able to sleep," answered Gascoigne, irritably. "Why the hell shouldn't I?" He hesitated a moment. "Well, goodbye for the present," he added, in a matter-of-fact voice. "See you tonight, then," said Castles, smiling frankly. The two friends left Gascoigne, Bruton closing the door in careful silence. Out in the street, he asked, "What do you think of him?" "Look here, Harry," said Castles, "let's not talk about it at all. If you think you ought to stay with him, we'll wait downstairs until he wakes up. But if you think he can be safely left, let's go out for the day together and forget all about him. With a chap like that you don't know how much is sincere and how much is acting. Probably the poor devil doesn't know himself, but he's got his revolver with him. Yes, he has. What then? He may use it." "Precisely. For heaven's sake, Harry, do make up your mind what you are going to do. But let me tell you this, your presence irritates him, and it is much better for him to be left alone." "Well, then, we'll leave him. We go this way for the garage." Dinner that night at the Minerva Hotel was rather a dull affair, for Bruton even at the third course began to fidget about Gascoigne and to wonder if his friend were lying dead in his bedroom. "Let's have some wine, Harry," said Castles. "What's that golden booze the people at the next table are drinking?" "Some native stuff, Olympus they call it, I think." "Well, we'll have a bottle, 2 bottles," but the more Bruton drank the more despondent he became, and over coffee and liqueurs he said, "It's quite time he was here. 9:30. For heaven's sake, do keep calm. We can do nothing but wait." "Yes, I know. But I feel we ought not to have left him alone all day. How rotten he would feel when he woke up. And, in his present condition, he may be annoyed that we've come here to dine. I do hope my servant has given him my note telling him where to find us." He moved restlessly, and then rose to his feet. An idea had struck him. It was possible Gascoigne had left a note or a message for him at his flat across the way. "Excuse me a minute, won't you? I've left something at my flat that I want." He hurried away. In 5 minutes he was back again, holding a note in his hand. "He left this at my flat this afternoon," said Bruton, agitatedly. "What does it mean?" Castles read the following. "I'm not coming tonight. I'm staying at home. All the loveliness of the world has become cruel. Sympathy is an intrusion and kindness bruises. Yet if you and your friend would like to come and get drunk with me tonight, you will be welcome." "I understand his mood well enough," said Castles. "We'd better be getting along, hadn't we? The best thing we can do is to let him drink himself to sleep. Tomorrow we'll put the screw on." They hurried down the road and in a quarter of an hour had reached the big white house with the green shutters. In the moonlight it looked insubstantial, ethereal, like some enormous ghostly bird preparing for flight. The door of the main entrance showed there was a light in the hall, and through the half-closed shutters of one of the rooms on the ground floor more light revealed itself. They rang, but there was no response. Nor did their knocking evoke any movement they could hear. Ringing and knocking alternately, they stood for 5 minutes or so, speaking little, but into the hearts of both of them fear had begun to creep. "Damned funny," said Bruton, at length. "Look here, Dick, will you stay where you are while I go and investigate? He may be in the garden somewhere, or he might have dropped off to sleep in one of the outhouses." Castles, sitting down on the top step, lit his pipe. Summing up the situation and attempting to calculate the chances of Gascoigne's having committed suicide, he muttered, "More than likely, more than likely. A chap like that might do it just for the sake of making an effect, just to give the whole affair its proper dramatic close." Bruton was a long time away. At last he returned, running. "Are you there, Dick?" "No, I've found nothing. He's not there. I've tried all the windows I can get at, but they're all locked. His servant sleeps out, and I don't know where to get hold of him. We must break one of the windows. Yes, I suppose we must, if it's only to ease our own minds. This damned business is getting on my nerves." They selected the smallest window, broke it open, and entered the house. "You'd better let me go first," said Castles, "my nerves are a bit steadier than yours." They entered the lit-up room, the room in which they had breakfasted. It was untenanted. The decanter which, earlier in the day, had been half full was now empty. By its side was a bottle of brandy holding a third of its original contents. Without a word, acting on the same impulse, they left the room, ascended the stairs and entered Gascoigne's bedroom. This also was untenanted. Near the door the floor was covered with the debris of the shattered cast. Bruton walked to and almost pounced upon the dressing table, opening one drawer after another. "His revolver's gone," he said, as if the final word had been spoken. "Is there a piano in the house?" "Yes, why, let's go and play it. It'll pull us together a bit. After all, what is there more likely than that he's gone for a long tramp? Or he might have changed his mind and gone to your place after all. In any case we can do nothing now but wait." A little comforted, Bruton led the way to the music room. "Play something, Dick, I'm too shaky," he said. So Castles played some of the humane if rather turgid music of Schumann, in which one may always find balm for the poisoned mind. The brooding sound brought them both consolation for a time, but at length Bruton's mind wandered away from the music, and he began to tease and lacerate his spirit with horrible thoughts. Supposing he is lying dead in a cupboard somewhere, something whispered to him, or in a bath. He might have cut a vein and even at this moment be bleeding to death. Or he might have gone onto the roof. Then, rising from his chair, he said, hurriedly, "Dick, we must go and look for him, we must go and find him." At the first word Castle's fingers dropped lifeless on the keys. "I was thinking the same thing myself," he said. "We'll do the ground floor first." Slowly and in silence they went from one room to another, switching on the electric lights and looking in every place, likely and unlikely, which a man might have chosen to hide his own dead body in. The rooms, for the most part, were large and sparsely furnished, and a mere glance was in many cases sufficient to assure them that there, at least, no tragedy had been enacted. But in a narrow, long passage leading to the back premises, and in the back premises themselves, were many cupboards. These they opened one by one and, striking matches, peered inside. "Damn the whole business," exclaimed Bruton, "my legs feel like jelly. Each time I look I expect to see something," and Castles found that the hand with which he held the matches on high trembled. His body was cold and he felt sick. Nothing on the ground floor. In the room upstairs there was much more furniture, and they feverishly opened the lids of boxes and ottomans, looked under beds, pulled open the doors of wardrobes, and searched behind curtains. Coming out of the third bedroom they had searched, they both suddenly stood still with a sensation of terrible and grotesque fear. Gascoigne was standing at the doorway, leaning drunkenly against the jamb and watching them. "Looking for me?" he asked. "Yes," said Castles, who was the first to collect himself, "we thought you had fallen asleep in one of the bedrooms. We've come to drink with you." "Drunk enough," said Gascoigne. "Been drinking all day. However, you fellows help yourselves, plenty of drink downstairs. Staying the night? Good. I'm going to bed. Choose your own rooms. So long." He groped his way to his bedroom. Bruton followed him. Castles, standing in the passage, heard the following conversation. "Are you sure you're all right, Cyril?" "Course I'm all right. Why the hell shouldn't I be all right? What's the matter with me, eh? That's what I want to know, what's the matter with me?" "Oh, nothing. Of course there's nothing. Good night." Then, Bruton emerged from the room pale and excited. When they had reached the foot of the stairs, he whispered, "I've got it. I've got his revolver. I took it out of his coat pocket. Look. All 6 chambers are loaded." After a drink the two friends, choosing separate rooms, went to bed. It must have been about 3 o'clock next morning that Cyril Gascoigne awoke with an intolerable thirst. For a little while he lay wondering where he was and trying to remember the events of the previous day. Like a nightmare they came to him, and with them came a feeling of self-disgust. Sitting up in bed he groped about for his coat and, taking a box of matches from one of his pockets, struck a light. Some blind instinct made him feel in the right-hand side pocket to discover if his revolver was still there. The pocket was empty. In a flash he jumped out of bed and turned on the light. "Damn him," he muttered, "he's got them both now." And then his brain, overwrought and dizzied with the fumes of alcohol, began to breed the thoughts and desires of madness. "So Bruton thought I was going to commit suicide, did he? And he's tried to outwit me. The damned fool. Why, blast it, if I'd wanted to shoot myself I would have shot myself. Why not? But I'll show him. He can't get the better of me, I'm damned if he can." He chuckled with insane laughter, and his eyes became deep with cunning. Having turned out the electric light, he lit a candle, noiselessly opened the door, and listened. Not a sound. Yes, breathing, the sound of someone breathing deeply in his sleep. He crept along the passage, stopped and listened again. The sound came from the room on his right, the door of which was open. For a brief second he looked inside. It was Bruton, fast asleep. Gascoigne had no doubt at all that his revolver lay under the pillow beneath Bruton's head. He was as confident it was there as if he had seen it. He extinguished the candle, put it on the floor, and crept into the bedroom on his hands and knees, making no sound, and breathing through both mouth and nostrils. His fingers slid along the mattress until they reached the pillows. Then for a minute he paused. Gently, gently his open hand felt its way inch by inch, pressing itself hard upon the mattress. Again he paused. The sleeper did not move. Then, once more, his hand began its stealthy work, exploring, sensitive, apprehensive. In 10 minutes he was sitting on the floor holding the revolver, sweat on his forehead, a dreadful dryness in his throat. And now he rose to his feet and walked quickly and agitatedly but very silently to his own room, locking the door behind him. "I'll show him," he muttered. "I'll teach him to meddle." Taking a thick eiderdown quilt from a cupboard, he spread it carefully on the bed. Then, with the revolver still in his hand, he crept head first beneath the clothes, dragging them closely around him. No one heard the shot that was fired. Not until the marvelous April dawn of Greece came that morning did Bruton wake up and, jumping out of bed, try so quietly to open Gascoigne's door. For, if Gascoigne slept, he did not wish to wake him.